Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 412. This is your guide to the geek side, and I'm one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra, joined by Charlie Carden.
What's happening, y'all?
Yeah, we're here again. We just want to say, first of all, thank you to our Patreon members. We are now up to 3 members now, and we want to give a shout out to Missy Merchant, who is a great supporter of us. She has arranged other Patreon content in regards to interviews, so that's very exciting. So thank you, Missy. And we're already disappointing you because we were going to answer your questions, and then we realized we are ill-informed to answer it in a way that would make sense to anyone. So we will get it back to you with a different question in the future.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we want to keep an eye. And Missy is great. She's a member of the USS Grand Petoskey crew on our senior staff. She is our ship's counselor because in real life she is a licensed therapist and a wonderful one. And she has just been such a great friend, both to the club and then obviously to our network. So we are grateful for you. And of course, Sean Nias and his wonderful family are, of course, as we talked about and gave them their superpower. Oh, is Missy do a superpower as well? We're ill prepared.
We have not given her, but that's something we can start off. So yes, so thank you, Sean, Stella, and Henry, for continuing to support us. We appreciate it. We've got some feedback about your superpowers that you were given. I'm sorry, there's no refund on those. So
yep, exactly. You take what you get. There you go.
If you are a mutant, sometimes you get a secondary mutation, which is a different power.
Oh, there you go.
So maybe in the future you'll be granted that as you go through puberty. Sean, it's too late for you, man.
Yes, unless you start going Benjamin Button, it could be, I don't know.
That's true. But Missy Merchant, let's see. Oh boy, Charlie, a superpower. So, we've already been criticized for our picks. So
right.
We can each pick one, and then Missy can then choose which one she thinks better fits herself. So I'll go first. So Missy, I am going to give you the ability to pick your hairstyle.
Ooh.
Any week, any time, you can just change it. That's your superpower. So ultimately, you never have bedhead. You never have to worry about having a bad hair day. Although I don't know if it will always be the hairstyle exactly as you wanted. So it might be like, I want long flowing hair, and then maybe you get a rat tail.
Could be. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm fiddling with my device here because it's misbehaving. I'm too loud. I'm too short. I'm too loud. I'm too short. But I don't know. I don't know how that happened. My power for Missy. Now, Missy is awesome, but she's one of my friends of a somewhat diminutive stature as far as height. So I think she should have the natural powers like who was it? Who was the giant woman on Super Friends? She was on the Legion of Doom? Was it Titania? Giganta. I think she should have Giganta's power. I think she should be like, and now I'm 25 feet tall. And that way she doesn't have to look up to me anymore. And if I piss her off, she can just step on me. Squish. There you go. You got super growing powers. You can be up to 75 feet tall. Which is just like, damn, that's like 8-story building.
That never goes well, Charlie. That never goes well.
Up to.
I was going to say you could probably give her an extra 6 inches. Like she has the ability to grow an extra 6 inches.
That's not so bad. So anywhere
it's useful, and no one's going to mistake you for a monster.
So anywhere between 6 inches and 75 feet. You're welcome.
Okay.
It's the worst of both worlds.
Good luck, Missy, with your superpowers. Use them and let us know which one you picked.
Yes,
once
exactly.
You pick it, can't go back.
You gotta pick it and stick.
Did you
with
tell her though the other curses? The clothes don't grow with the person, so you have to figure out in advance, how will I get a 70-foot tall T-shirt?
Yes, exactly. Or just be comfortable roaming around buck naked, which she lives in northern Michigan, and this time of year, I don't think that would be so advantageous.
Cold. See, there's always a monkey paw curse to this.
Exactly.
So you've been warned.
So, speaking of things that may or may not age well or just generally confusing, we have this week's comic book cover, and I picked this one. And I generally let Todd pick, but I was doing the flow this week, so I thought, you know what? Let's go with a Molden oldie. And it was funny; it kind of reminds me of when we had our friend Kelly G on. She's been a contributor on the show twice, but the
And
first time she came on, she was talking about comics history and comics from the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. So this is the original Superman title, or excuse me, the first Superman in name title, because the first Superman title was Action Comics and continues to be. But this is issue 12 of Superman from October of 1941, and so this is actually before Pearl Harbor, which was famously the full entrance of the United States into World War II, or what became World War II. And you got Superman walking arm in arm with on one arm is a sailor, obviously from the United States Navy. On the other arm is a soldier, obviously from the United States Army. And they're just kind of stepping into whatever. And Todd, your comment of which was, this was September, October issue. So 2 months. So it was a bi-monthly publication for 10 cents. It was probably 200 pages. Todd,
and,
what
and 9,000 thought bubbles.
exactly?
And dialogue bubbles, yeah.
Hastily drawn. So, Todd, what does this image make you think of? I don't know.
I thought this is the first incarnation of the Village People, to be honest.
You think so?
I think so, yeah. Because I don't know if the Navy guys had 85 pouches on their belt, and they also were wearing spats. So spats are a very interesting thing. I don't know if spats were part of the uniform back in the day.
Well, and that's the Army uniform. That's obviously that's a dress or an office uniform, like a Class A. They wouldn't have the pouches on those. And they wouldn't have the spats either, would they? Because it's basically it's like a business suit, right? So
absolutely.
Somebody who's
showing up
for
a tribunal for war crimes. That's what.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, Superman could get you out of that,
or you have an office job, or you're
exactly. But you're like you said, the Navy guy wouldn't have the pouches. His uniform is kind of the wrong color blue. It's not dark enough, and the spats are not, because Navy guys wore. What's the footwear for a sailor like that?
I'm assuming it's some type of boot of some sort.
Probably
steel toe
black.
for you don't want to drop a bucket on your foot. So
exactly. So yes, for the
no, maybe it's flippers. I don't know.
It's for just walking around the ship, flop,
exactly.
flop.
Might
for
fall in the water.
The guy who's chipping paint.
Exactly.
Hard to do wearing your flippers. I don't know. You know what? Military history veterans, go ahead and add us at Secret Friends U over on Twitter to let us know how badly we've obviously maligned these military uniforms from the past. But you know what's funny? I look at the date, 1941. Our senior news correspondent, Madam Webb, was getting into her. She was 41 years old, 42 years old. Because we know famously that 41. We know famously she was born on 1/1/1900. So she was an old spinster even then. But I'll bet even back then she was delivering those top news scoops down there at the corner of Hollywood and Vine in old Hollywood land town. So let's go there now and let's find out what's going on with the news with Madam Webb.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. As Charlie mentioned in your intro, I think, Charlie, if I remember this right, Madam Webb was actually like the senior Andrew's sister, the Bugle Boy company. They kicked her out. Like Menudo, you got too old. You don't get last. So so essentially, just before they got famous, they kicked her out and they brought in a younger girl. So Madam Webb is still hoping to kick off her music career after all these years. So we'll be waiting to hear about your viral TikTok phenomenon song called "I Got Old Problems."
I was going to say that was bigger than her disgrace of getting thrown out of the Rockettes. Oh my goodness! All right, what do we got up first here? Get ready for a sequel to a prequel that was way behind its times, because the word is that the upcoming Thunderbolts film is being described as a sequel to the Black Widow film. This is a quote from Marvel Studios director of visual development. Well, there's a hot take. Okay, what's his name? Bill Simpson. Never heard of him, but the Thunderbolts we've talked about this on the show before, are famously the team of narrative. They're not really approaching it this way, but it came along at a time when the heroes were born. This was the late 1990s when some of the heroes were transported to a pocket universe. So we lost the Avengers, we lost the Fantastic Four, and they had their own crappy little titles for about a year. And then so the world was without their big hero team, and then this hero team shows up and they're helping out, and it's at the end of the first issue of their own title, which was not their first appearance. We did cover that it's revealed that they're actually villains in disguise. So this Thunderbolts has more of a vibe of the kind of the Suicide Squad, I'm thinking, at least,
I
you know,
think so.
kind of way this is described.
Because they're not
'cause you got-
masquerading as heroes to the public, I don't believe, unless that's their plan, is to like have another team that is supposed to fill the void of the Avengers
oh,
and
gotcha.
put it in a
Okay.
positive light. But maybe we find out later they have more nefarious, endeavors planned. So yeah, I'm not
Right.
100% sure. I mean, it's a team name that we all know, and the Thunderbolts have had how many incarnations throughout
A lot.
since its
Yeah.
launch? Probably like 6 different versions, and then
Jeez.
sometimes they're like hero themed, sometimes they're just a team.
Right.
So I don't know.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, yeah, in 25 years, certainly they would, because that's the way it works. But yeah, he's quoted here saying Taskmaster, Red Guardian, Yelena, and Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, who is, of course, Veep.
Agent Elaine. Agent Elaine.
Agent Elaine. So she's, I mean, it's a little bit more Suicide Squad because she's like, what's her butt? Amanda Waller. But I mean, they're not going to be running through and killing off these characters, but they still could like come along and give them all different names and stuff. Said, these are your new heroes, but it's really, it's a big flammaroo, because we've also got, who else we got lined up for that one? I believe they're going to bring Winter Soldier back. They're going to bring back John Walker as the U.S. agent, and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, this is studio film, and we're about 18 months out from this dropping, July 26th, almost exactly 18 months, July 26th of 2024, which I would imagine means it's in production right now. Oh, one disproved rumor was that the ghost character from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, I thought she was shown in the poster or whatever, the image for it.
I'm sure it was crafty fan art, because isn't that always the way that works? But yeah, that's the deal. I mean, I'm interested. I enjoy a lot of those characters, and you know, if they take a spin somewhere between the source material and like a Suicide Squad where it's jokey and fun, which Marvel is really good at, then I think it has a chance to be good.
Yeah, they're even talking. There's potentially that the Sentry could be in this, and the Sentry is such a weird character. The fact that when they originally introduced the Sentry, they said, "Oh, this is an old character that Stan Lee created," and it was totally a lie. They just did it to like create some buzz, and then you find out Sentry is essentially Marvel's Superman in some ways. Also, is haunted, cursed, mentally unstable because of some type of, was it the Black Void or something that was going to constantly get him?
That was a character that came around during a time when I wasn't reading comics, but you know, not only does that character just really makes it sound like Homelander from The Boys, but also the Avengers did that again about 5 years ago with a character called Voyager, which is a female character. That they went back there, and it was using the projection. I can't remember if it was a cosmic cube thing, but she kind of projected everyone else's memories, and then they redrew, like, here's the cover of Avengers 1, and
I remember characters,
and she's back there. Yeah, so that was back in 2015, 2016. So, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. That could add a wrinkle into the story. Once again, I don't know what they're going to do with this group, what their mission is, what their intent will be, but you know, I liked a lot of the characters from Black Widow, and moving this to modern times, and you know, and bring this team together could be interesting. I don't know. It looks like we're going to get more and more movies from the MCU versus more that was been tipped to the TV series. So I think we're going to see probably more of the things go to movies rather than, because I thought this was actually going to be just a TV series. When it first was announced.
I mean, you know, and to me, a team something in some ways can make sense for a TV show, or it could be balanced between the both. But single character stories, you know, the big action piece seems great for a movie, but I don't know. It's a mixture.
And they already introduced the characters, so it's not like they have to do the heavy lifting of introducing 8 new characters in a 2-hour period, because that
exactly
works.
Because that did not work for almost anything DC has done. Anyway. Anyway, so what do we got next? This one was yours. This was a last minute edition.
Yeah, so this is an interesting story that's coming out about a franchise that has really had some issues over time, and that is Tomb Raider. I mean, it started off in the PlayStation 1 era. they had these games where Laura Croft, she's a Tomb Raider, she's looking for treasures. The games were hugely successful. Then they made a movie series with 2 movies with Angelina Jolie
Oh my
being the
God.
lead character. And then the first one was, I think, people enjoyed. And then after that, the second one, I never saw it actually. It
It
was
was
called
kind of too much of a bad thing. That might end up
Exactly.
on our bad trip to the movies that show that April and I are gonna do. I though she really enjoyed it, so I don't know if I could probably hornswoggle her
Yeah,
into it.
I don't remember anything specifically bad about them. They just were kind of a time when it was, those late
Right.
or early 2000 era movies. But then they bought back the video game series, kind of rebooted it, and highly successful for the first 2 games. The third game
Mhm.
was not loved, and they then brought in a new
Oh
movie
yeah,
based on
Alicia
that.
with Alicia Vikander, I think it was so
Exactly.
it's a
Yeah, and
Swedish actress or something. Yeah.
that was very faithful to the reboot of the video game series. So, but I think a lot of people just didn't get a lot of buzz. I mean, I never saw it either, and I usually watch those things. So,
Right. So
so
it was a reboot that was faithful to the reboot.
exactly, yeah. So there's talks about another reboot of Tomb Raider coming back. We'll see if that happens in the video game lens. But in this story, is essentially a Hollywood Reporter is reporting that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is developing a Tomb Raider show for Amazon. It's part of a larger deal with the company where she's going to be producing projects, which is kind of amazing. I mean, Fleabag was kind of her debut. She is a very talented woman, does a lot of comedy and things like that. So I don't associate her with action adventure, but then she's going to be in the Indiana Jones movie.
Right.
So it's a weird take on a person kind of being more than just what they appear on a first glance. So there's not a lot of details on this, but it kind of makes sense. Amazon wants to get more content out there that has name recognition, can bring in certain fans to their service that can spend what is Prime now, $150 a year.
Yes, it got enough. I thought it was 130, but it could be 150.
Oh,
But by the time
exactly.
I think
It goes up all the time. Yeah.
yeah, I think our renewal is in the summertime, so I guess I'll find out.
Yeah. So,
But I mean,
so
we
this
use it.
is,
Well, I mean, yeah, we use it. It's worth it, but still. Mhm.
yeah. So Amazon is in a weird place because they don't get ratings. They don't have to worry about this stuff. People pay to get deliveries and they view the extras as just that. So I don't think
Right.
Amazon's in a weird place, and just giving us this content, which some of it's very, very high quality. I'm hoping this is done well. The Rings of Power, they put a lot of money against that. A lot of
Hmm.
people liked it.
Hmm.
I enjoyed it. But we'll see how this works because at this point, it's hard to pull off something like this and have a good tone. I mean, we're seeing with The Last of Us and other video game properties, it's told successfully. They're done well. This one though, there's not a lot of great source material. Tomb Raider was never known for great story. It was
Yeah.
shoot 'em up, escape the bad guys, run away.
Watch her go pew pew pew, and then she had the weird. She had the weird cone shaped
Yes,
upper
yes.
body portion
The
happening.
polygonal version had the Madonna
Yes,
cone.
exactly.
Yes.
I love that's always the meme that they say, oh man, the government faked the moon landing in 1969, and they show graphics in 1998, and they show that picture. I don't think
Yep.
so.
That's how it works. Yeah. So, we like I said, this may happen, may not, but this could be good once again. Hopefully, because I think, has a vision of quality that if
Hmm.
it's coming from her, I think we could expect good things.
I mean, we have the same hope around what was it we were talking about last week about Donald Glover and the project. Oh, the Hypno Hustler. We're hoping that, well, he's an artist, so hopefully he's not going to sign on to something that will be garbage.
Money, please. Yes.
Money. Yes. There's another great meme. Money. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Jenny Slate from Parks and Recreation. All right, moving on. Very near and dear to my heart. We're talking about the Fantastic Four. So there is a solid intel. Again, this is a story from Comic Book Movie, and some people love it, some people hate it. But at any rate, it has to do with Fantastic Four. Solid intel saying the main villain reportedly revealed, and Adam Driver remains in the running for Reed Richards. I like Adam Driver, but holy cow! I mean, this is going to be. We've talked time and again about the Fantastic Four and the Odyssey to get them right on the big screen, coming all the way from that Roger Corman thing from the 90s that never saw the light of day, but was kind of made out. It was kind of made out of spite, wasn't it? Just to
I
save a
think they
license from
had to
expiring.
do yeah, they had to
Yeah,
make it. So they did it,
right.
and I will tell you, of the time, I thought it looked pretty good for the
I
time.
agree. I liked the graphic suit they did for Ben Grimm for the thing. I thought that was like really spot
On a
on. But
$2
anyway,
budget.
then we flash forward another 10 years. So we're in the aughts. And of course, Fox owned the license. So they made 2 films. I own Gruffled was Reed Richards, and I thought he nailed it. Don't really love the rest of the cast. Didn't love the portrayal of our beloved Chris. I was not Chris Evans, not Chris Hemsworth, as Johnny Storm, and you had Jessica Alba at her peak was Sue, and I loved was it
Chickless?
Chickless as the Thing. Perfect. But anyway, those movies were, the first one was the second one was meh. So even though the second one starred as the Silver Surfer, Doug Jones. How are you going to put that down? But yeah, then we jump to the 2015 Fantastic Four, and literally all we're going to say about that. Yeah, we do.
No, we don't. We don't talk about
it?
that.
Yes, exactly.
Talk about
What?
Bruno.
Who? Where? Oh my! Yes, Doctor Strange cast a spell, and now it no longer exists. That's great. So anyway, obviously, the Fantastic Four acquired by Disney when they acquired Fox within the last few years, and so this is a movie that is on the slate for 2015. So that's the current word. Todd, what do you think about Adam Driver as Reed Richards? I mean, we know he is an accomplished actor. He's a great actor. Do you think he's got what it takes?
I think he does. And there's others, we've John Krasinski, R.I.P. His Reed Richards. So maybe that was just, hey, we're gonna please the fans, but we're not gonna go that direction, which I think is perfectly fine.
Totally.
It would be funny though if they cast Emily Blunt as, but not him. That'd be great. I just love it. Yep, make it happen, because Emily Blunt is fantastic, and she should be in the MCU. And she was originally supposed to be Black Widow, I believe, but that changed back in the day.
Gotcha.
So with this casting, I think could work really well. Adam Driver is, like you said, he is very good at doing many different things. He is not a one-note actor. He's got a unique look, and I think he could be a good foil for the role. And I think he brings a gravitas that Reed has. Reed is aloof, kind of. His head is always somewhere else, like solving equations and fighting in the negative zone, even though if he's eating his breakfast, he's doing all those things at the same time. So I think he could pull that off. There's like a new movie he's in where he essentially plays a professor who is just not grounded, but he's got a family. So maybe that's why, because that role, it's like, oh, he should be in that too. But they've got to make a cast announcement soon, because this movie is supposed to come out February 14th.
2 years. So 2 years from now.
So they've got to film this damn thing. It's 2 years from release, not just when they're going to start filming. So they've got to get this thing like filming in the next 6 months to get it done, all the special effects to get this thing ready and in the can. So I'm curious when we'll hear more about this. I mean, the next big Disney thing is going to be what? D23?
It says in here D23. That's summertime, yeah.
Yeah, but that could be the right time though. Announce it.
I would have
filming
to
in October.
Right. And the big exactly. The big bad being tossed about is Galactus. And that's, that's perfect, because Galactus was utterly misrepresented in that second film from the aughts, the Rise of the Silver Surfer, because he was a damn space cloud, and it's just there's no cause for that.
Charlie, did they get that from Star Trek: The Motion Picture? Like, actually Galactus was in the space cloud, but you didn't see him because he was covered?
But that was an angrier cloud. That looked like it was a smoke cloud, where the V'ger cloud from Star Trek: The Motion Picture was very pleasant, and it had all the lights, and it was blah blah blah. I mean, V'ger was, you'd want to hang out if you were inside the V'ger cloud, because it's fun to look at. The Galactus smoke cloud, it's just ugly.
Oh,
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So this would be cool. So anyway, yeah, D23 being what I'm assuming in the summertime would be the very latest. But yes, I think we'll get that. And they also say that Penn Badgley, Amanda Seyfried, and Rudy Pankow are no longer in the ring. Don't know who he is. And Ryan Gosling also out. They do remark that they're pretty sure that he will be Thunderbolt's Sentry. Interesting.
That's a good casting. And then we
Yeah,
still don't know who's going to be Doom. Doom will
I
be
guess.
a huge deal because Doom, as we
Big,
know,
huge deal.
he can be used across everything. He's not just
Right.
the Fantastic Four's enemy; he is everyone's enemy.
He
So,
is he's the dude. So okay, so Todd, this was we've talked about this a lot lately, because both of us are really on the fence. I've watched a couple of the most recent season. I've had people, running the Star Trek fan club. I got people who want to lump this all in, like the Orville's like Star Trek used to be, and I'm like, I don't care. It's not Star. Don't tell me it's Star Trek. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. But we're talking about the Orville. Um, it got snapped up by Disney, obviously. In the Fox merger, it was shifted over to Hulu. They made another season that came out last year, and it even just says right here, and it says the third season of the Orville, which is Seth MacFarlane's homage to Star Trek: The Next Generation. Just say it right there.
yeah.
The show never clicked with me because Todd, I'm of a mind with you that if I want to see something that's like Star Trek: The Next Generation, I'll simply go and watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, which I do for Code 47 anyway. I don't really need to see Seth MacFarlane's vision of making his thing just be how many plots of TNG can we jam into this one segment. That being said, people who don't embrace the newer direction that Star Trek is going in just think that this is all that in a bag of chips. But did you ever end up watching any more of it? I know you were on the fence.
I watched the first parts of the first season. I fell off because I'm like, it doesn't. I get the intention. The execution to me was a big fail.
Yeah,
Then they said, "Hey, watch this episode. It changes everything." And it was like the one where you find out the group of robots are actually killing everybody. This
right.
race of robots or whatever it was, I can't remember. They're so
Yeah, pretty
unfortunately a lot of
much.
these things are very bland and they don't stand out.
Right.
So and I'm like, it didn't change everything for me. So I'm like, okay, that is good advertising with minimal effect. And I know they added the semicolon New Horizons. And I really didn't know the purpose of that. So if maybe I'm dumb and I don't understand why it was changed to that, unless they wanted it to stand out, like, hey, it's a new season. We're gonna do that,
Or
which
it's
is
or
fine.
simply to set apart because it's new episodes, as opposed to somebody scrolling through and, oh, this is on Hulu now, but I've already watched all of it, so just keep scrolling.
Yeah,
Could be.
but I mean, I think the intent was there's no new Star Trek right now. We don't know if we're going to get a movie. There's no TV series. This is a
Right.
great thing to fill the void, and I thought that's what I think. When initially like, this could be good.
Right.
Our worries were Seth MacFarlane.
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Exactly. And
his writing, his sense of humor, all those things will it work?
right. And in a lot of ways, he's a compatriot to myself, big Star Trek fan, grew up on TNG. He's our age. We loved Family Guy early on. We both did. Don't you remember when maybe, oh no, I'm thinking of when you and I first watched the first episode of South Park and we were just dying laughing. But Family Guy was kind of the same thing. When it came out the box, it was great, but it
Mhm.
just kind of wore out its welcome because it was the same. And it got canceled, then it came back, and it just got more ridiculous. And yeah, that you're right. That whole first season of the Orville was just it was the ridiculous meter. How ridiculous can we make it? And then he bounces back and tried to make it a little bit more serious. And it just, like I said, I am happy. It's my comfort food to go back and watch TNG. Love growing up with it. We talk about it over on Code 47 as we rotate through the classic series because that's what we do. But you're right. There's nothing about the Orville that's special or wonderful. It's the same reason that I don't think April and I continue to watch the new version of Quantum Leap because there's just nothing special or awesome about it.
Yeah, this is
So
like the Transmorphers.
it is. It's very much. And then when the other thing that drives me nuts, and even the source material of this article, is that they report about this on TrekMovie.com, which is a good, solid Star Trek news website. But leave that Orville stuff on. That's not Star Trek. You know what I
It
mean?
has homages to it. I think that's why they do it because, like, fill the gaps. It's 24 new hours. Like, although Charlie, I would say I would have rather gotten the Galaxy Quest series than the
I
Orville.
agree. It was funny. We were having that exact same conversation because I brought up Galaxy Quest at our last in-person meeting of our Star Trek fan club chapter, because somebody was talking about the Orville, and I said, I said all the things that pretty much we said right now, and I said I think Galaxy Quest would have been a much better fit. And then April hits me out of nowhere and says, I never really cared for that movie. I was like, oh, you never really cared for the Galaxy Quest? That was news to me. I
devastating.
love Galaxy Quest, and I know it's very
And
special
that's
to
a
you as
homage to
well.
TOS versus TNG. Totally get it. And you
Exactly.
know what? And they may get another series right now. Seth MacFarlane says not sure. Nothing's been talked about it. But to a lot of people, maybe this is something they love that Star Trek never got to them. But they love a more modern show. That's because TNG is now very old. Maybe they
True.
like this better graphics, special effects, whatever they like in
Could
regards to that
be.
manner. And maybe they like the jokey sense of humor. I don't know. I'm not gonna say you shouldn't watch this show. I'm just saying it wasn't for me
Right.
because it was
Agreed.
trying to do something I felt like it didn't succeed in my mind, but other
Right.
people may love it.
No, I agree. I agree. So, kind of interesting this last story because I have always been willy-nilly about Doctor Who. We know that John, who is our founding secret friend, is big Doctor Who guy. I know that you watch him, and every once in a while you'll drop a hey, it's coming back, whatever it is. With the advent of our Patreon content and of the Facts of Geek Life show, which I'm doing now. First episode's out now. Second episode is going to be out pretty quickly. I have reached out to various people, in the community that we worked with, and I say pick a show, pick a season, pick a handful of episodes, and let's discuss. And we've been trying to get John back doing this again, and he's like, "Oh no, it's just not for me," or whatever it is. But when I said, "Hey, would you come on and do a Doctor Who with me?" You pick the season, you pick the episodes, and we'll roll with it. And he was all over it. He gave me some like 5 episodes. I've watched 2 of them, and I just absolutely loved it. And it was the series 9 with Capaldi, which I just totally dug. It was the first 2 episodes of series 9. So, and I said, John, we can just keep this rolling. So now I'm a little bit more invested in Doctor Who. I'll say it for sure. And Todd, you've continued to watch, so you have a little
Yeah.
bit more of an informed opinion on it. But they've got a new showrunner, Russell T Davies, who is more interested in embracing kind of a world building franchise Star Trek bent of having kind of multiple shows, because that's something that obviously since 2017 when Discovery came along on CBS All Access, which then became Paramount Plus, they have different shows, shorter shows, 10 episodes or 13, 16 in some cases, doing different things in different time periods. And it's kind of like something for everybody. So wrap to me, what do you think about the concept?
Well,
What could they do?
Well, Russell T Davies, he was kind of the person that got Doctor Who back. I mean,
Yeah.
and he
Oh,
left. He left and went on to do other things. He came back. This is him coming back now to it. So I think maybe it was good because he's like, I needed a break because he was at Doctor Who from 2005 to 2010.
oh, gotcha. Okay.
And so he covered a lot of the really, a lot of, a lot of the really strong doctors that we got. He also did that Sherlock show with
Mhm.
Cumberbatch. So he's a really successful producer and creator and writer. And he also did he did several spin-offs of Doctor Who when he was on that thing. He did Torchwood, which is very cool, a
Oh
different
yeah,
take on
yeah.
Doctor. And he also did the Sarah Jane Adventures, which was more of a younger audience show. So he took Sarah Jane, who was a character like a companion from the past, brought her
Yeah.
forward, teamed her up with K9, who is the the doctor's
Oh, the dog, the
robotic. Yeah,
robot dog,
yeah, yeah.
which is
So
great because it's just a box with a head and a tail that goes. "Wah, wah, wah, wah."
exactly. So he's done the expansion. It just didn't. I mean, it didn't like Torchwood stopped after I think 2 seasons, 3 season, which I really enjoyed.
Right.
And then Sarah Jane, I think that got 2 to 3
Mhm.
seasons maybe, but very fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And the fact that when we say Star Trek, I mean, Doctor Who predates pretty much is the precursor for sci-fi and TV.
Mhm.
It predates Star Trek, but I think where Star Trek and Doctor Who are good, I guess peers is you can reboot it. You can
Right.
continue it
Reinvention,
forward because you can do that
different
every
formats,
time there's a new Doctor.
vast
It's a new.
majority of
It's
characters,
yeah.
and he's a Time Lord, so he's here, he's there. Yeah, the
Yeah.
first 2 episodes we watched had to do with oh god, I'm gonna forget Davros, and who was his arch nemesis, and he was the guy that created the Daleks, and they did a whole thing based around there. But it wasn't. And again, John and I are going to talk about this. You'll hear it on a future episode of the Patreon show. It was when Davos was a child. The Doctor had a chance to save him, and he didn't. And then they go through. He loses his faith, and they go through this whole thing. And at the end of it, he goes back, and spoiler alert, he does save the kid. So it's just. but again, that show traveling through time, and then Star Trek has very much become that as well, with Discovery leaping forward, and they leapt forward like a plot line between the Vulcans and the Romulans having become one people, and
Yep.
they brought together Spock's mission, which was from back in the time of the Next Generation, and finally brought that group back into the Federation. It was that's the beauty of having this huge patchwork of different places and corners, and it's something that Star Wars is doing now. To people look at it with different very varying levels of success. Don't talk to Todd about the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch and Wanda Sykes, and we're not gonna do it.
But Star Wars seems to be set in focus so much in one era versus they're trying different eras, which maybe they'll get there. I'm hoping they
I think
do.
so.
I'm hoping
they've got to, because how much more can they, until they're like, well, every day between episodes 4 and 6, we've got it documented, and they're getting there.
Well, they're trying to. They want a second season of Obi-Wan, which I'm like,
oh, God, please no.
Like I said,
God,
there's ways you can make that work, but I don't know if they'll go there because I think they are too worried about upsetting fans, and they want to give more of what they want, which is, they need to run into this guy we saw in one scene of the bar in episode 1.
Right.
Whatever.
It was the guy with it was the Wolfman, the guy with the horns. He needs his own series.
But
yeah. So anyway.
But you can explain away Doctor Who so much in a lot of the phrases. Like one of the favorite phrases, it's a big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. So Doctor Who doesn't take their canon as seriously. They can play around with it. They can meet up with other doctors. They can have the Doctor was here and he did this, and it's set up for like spin-offs like you wouldn't believe. I mean, a previous companion can have a show. You can meet an organization like Torchwood was spin off Dr. Jack Harkness. He basically showed up. Yeah, and he showed up, and that's how you got Torchwood. Bring back an old command. So I think it can be that. And the big part is Doctor Who is going to be part of the Disney family. So that was a big announcement. So they've got more money. It's not just the BBC. And
more money.
So that could be good or bad, because some people said, I don't like X since Disney took it over. So I don't know. I'm hoping it has good creative control. Russell Davies has created some of the best Doctor Who. And there's been other creators as well. And so this is probably, I think, a move with him coming in, saying like that and expanding it. This is the first time Doctor Who has really done this, except when Russell T Davies was on it and did it before. But that was kind of short-lived. And I don't think those shows really were hyped and put out as much as potentially we'll see with new stuff.
Right. So, well, cool. All right. Well, that is the end of the news. We shall bid adieu to our delightful Madam Webb. But it is time to get out that my phone, got to get the Fuber, the Feeble Uber app up, because we're going down to Scugtown. Talk about Nastyville. The Geek Easy awaits, talking about things we dig. So let's go.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, drinks are poured, cover band's playing, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So, Charlie, tell me about a movie.
Any movie?
Sure.
Well, starting back in the 1900s, they had the Nickelodeons that you could watch. No, okay, I'm not going to do that. So, everybody loves Jerry Butler or Gerard Butler. Probably that's not true. But anyway, he had a new movie. We saw this. When did we see this trailer? Like a couple of months ago. It's one of these like, all right.
I think it was somebody put in the Discord, and
it's like there's
zero for the name.
There's zero buzz. Yeah, you're right. And what I found out about the name of this is that the name of this was, I think the studio didn't want to use it, but Jerry Butler was like, nope, got to be that. And it's Plane, Plane, not
They couldn't pay for the air.
You're right, exactly.
The plane.
And
not even
I think,
the plane, Charlie.
I think
the plane.
I think if you spelled it as plane with an IN, that would probably be an apt description, because this movie was, and it's funny because the early buzz when it came out was like, oh, people are really saying this is a great this and thing or that thing, or at least that's what I thought. But we went to go see it, and I'm sure you get a lot out of the trailer. Jerry Butler is a veteran pilot. Who he works for a dirt airline because he got himself in trouble some years back by punching out an unruly passenger on a nicer airline. So he's flying out of Singapore, and he's flying like a red eye flight, and his daughter is waiting for his daughter, who's of school, a college age, is waiting to meet him for New Year's in Honolulu, which is where he's supposed to end up. But he leaves out a single, and it's a very empty plane. There's only like 10 people on it, and of course they went like very stereotype heavy. Like here's the British guy, and here's a Swedish girl, and here's an obnoxious American, and here's a blah blah blah, this thing or that thing, and then you have an FBI guy with a prisoner in shackles who happens to be Mike Coulter, who is
Luke Cage.
Luke Cage. With a weird military background. He's like, oh, this guy was on the run, but you find out later on that he was in the French Foreign Legion, which I wouldn't have picked out there, and he's a train killer and blah blah blah. So anyway, what happens is Jerry Butler, and full spoiler, sorry, Jerry Butler, and he's got a co-pilot who's a local, so he's from he's Asian. They're flying, and their plane gets they know they're going to be flying through some weather, but they're told to fly through it because it would save time and money and blah blah blah. Well, the plane gets struck by lightning, and somehow Jerry Butler manages to land it before the batteries die and everything, and they fall out of the sky on this unmarked island in the Philippines. Well, guess what? It's an unmarked island that's also run by terrorists and separatists and blah blah blah. And then it turns into how's Jerry Butler? Jerry Butler runs off to try to help out or try to find help, and then they discover obviously being run by these separatists and stuff, and it turns into a big shoot 'em up. He and Mike Coulter, so he says, okay, well, prisoner guy, you come with me and we're going to go off into the woods and find help together. And I'm like, that just doesn't seem really very smart. But anyway, it turns out Mike Coulter's not such a bad guy after all, and he's helping Jerry Butler out, and then he's fighting the terrorists. Meanwhile, the airline is on top of it, and they send in private security to help them, and it's just a big explosions and blah blah blah. And what's great about the plane is he lands it and it's intact, and they do some fiddling with it, and they're able to take off again. It's amazing.
Good thing they took that online course for airplane repair.
Yeah, you actually did see the co-pilot with his phone out watching YouTube, being like, "Okay, do I know?"
But anyway, YouTube will get you out of so many snafus.
This movie was a big shoot 'em up. It's pretty much, it was not, April and I went and saw it on Thursday or something, and we were like, it's pretty much what you would expect. Jerry Butler has been in. The heyday of his career was. Oh, even the kid who's selling us the ticket said, "Yeah, it's a lot like." What are some of those movies he was in? London's Falling or Olympus is Rising or
President's Dead.
Yeah. So he says,
like crap my pants.
No, that's from SNL. He's like, well, it's like that, but it's not as good. So I'm like, well, I haven't seen that, and this isn't that good. So what does it say about that first movie? I'm not sure. But anyway, it's a shoot 'em up. April enjoys the action movies and the shoot 'em up. So I'm like, yeah, all right. So you know what? We enjoyed ourselves. And again, because we go to our local theater chain and we have, a prepaid movie thing we can go see. We can go see movies completely guilt-free. We couldn't be like, I wasted my money seeing that piece of crap. Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it was worth seeing it. Would I recommend it? If you enjoy that kind of stuff, if you like Jerry Butler being very Jerry Butler like, he has a Scottish accent, but he said he was in the RAF as a youth. Now isn't that the Air Force in England? Yeah. So, but
he could have. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if like, Great Britain says, oh, we'll take you in and you can serve in the RAF or not. I'm not sure how that works either.
But anyway, yes, apparently their ass kicking training is second to none, because he was tearing the place up.
Well, good for him that he gets to use his accent.
Yes, he used his accent throughout, and so he didn't have to fake it. So anyway, enjoyable, but not exactly, rocket science or setting the world on fire. But if you enjoy that kind of stuff, go for it.
No Oscar nomination, man. That sucks.
I know. For what I call, I took a page from the Weekly Planet book, and I called it "Plane," the movie about a plane. So you can go out there and enjoy it.
They didn't lie.
Oh my gosh! And then second of all, Todd, obviously we're going to talk about this together. Last of Us, episode 2 was out last Sunday. We're getting episode 3 this evening. I am super duper hooked on this show, and this was a great one, Todd. Now they did something original, they did a flashback to the beginning, which really gave you some nice background. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, they're doing that. They did in the first episode with, Brother Mummy.
Right. Mr. Mummy from the 60s. Mummy from the 60s.
They're doing these nice little overlays to really add some more flavor that's unique to the TV series. So we had them talking about cordyceps, and in the 1960s talking about potentially something bad could happen. And obviously, fast forward. The first episode we got... And it's funny because a lot of people were trying to figure out, well, how did this spread? And then we kind of figure out, now we are told how it spread, because in the first episode we saw people were eating like baked goods or things with flour, and then like most of
Oh, these
our
flour
main
tortilla
cast,
chips are so
yeah,
tasty.
like the girl, Joel's daughter was offered cookies and said, no, I don't. And so we kind of had a feel like maybe there's something there, but weren't sure. And this one definitely confirmed those rumors. So
Right.
spoilers for anybody who's watching The Last of Us and have not caught up to episode 2. By the time you listen to this, though, episode 3 will be out. So
Yeah, you
it's
see
about a week delay.
that's always the thing I figure, that somebody's really into it, they're just watching it when it comes out.
Exactly.
You know what
And
I mean?
it's not going to really ruin anything for you, but this one really opens up in Jakarta, and you find out
Back in 03, yeah.
yeah, back in 03, and this woman is brought in, and you find out, oh, she's a scientist. She's I think a microbiologist or something like that. And
Mycologist, yeah. Kind
yeah,
of like, you know, and it's
studies
funny.
funguses, spores, all
Exactly,
those
which
fun
is
things.
funny because as she's doing her thing, she pulls out some of the spores or the
Mycelium, yeah.
mycelium, which is what
Yeah.
powers the spore drive on Discovery. I love that. I love
Maybe
that
this
touch.
is the precursor. This is how it became, Charlie. We'll never know.
Uh-oh. Well, but everybody didn't turn into a clicky monster.
Well, they had to get past the beta phase.
But the beta test.
Yeah, so you find out that the outbreak happened at a flour mill, and some workers basically started showing the symptoms. Some escaped, but they had one body left, and the doctor starts looking at it and pulls out the tendrils, the mycelium,
Mhm.
and she freaks out. So
Right.
that's kind of all we got from that era. But it's once again, it's layering pieces in flashback to tell us kind of how we got where we did, which is cool. I love that. It's not like we need a prequel
Right.
like series of 85 episodes to tell
Right.
us how we got there.
I love the conclusion of that, where this woman, you know, very stone cold, sits down with the you know, the Indonesian general, and she's like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to bomb the hell out of the city. There's no way to stop this other than killing people. So I'm just going to go home, and you do what you got to do," knowing that she's just going to go home and her neighborhood will be carpet bombed at some point in the near future. Because I'm sure she's absolutely right, but how sobering to think that, you know, same thing happened in The Walking Dead. You know, if you watch they had some flashbacks early on where our main characters were trying to get out of where they lived, and they were headed towards Atlanta because they thought the CDC was there, and they're watching Atlanta in the distance just burst into flame as they were just rolling napalm through the streets, just trying to wipe out the infected, and they just couldn't keep ahead of it. But what's interesting, jumping forward into the series, so we're picking up from where episode 1 left off, because they're trying to get Ellie to wherever it is that she's supposed to
Meet
go.
with the Fireflies, yeah, she's
right,
trying to meet there
exactly
with that group, yeah.
But you hear the what's the girlfriend's name?
Tess
Tess is saying, you know, hey, you know, early on, the kind of reference back to what the Indonesian scientists talked about. You know, they bombed whole cities in order to contain the spread, and they did a pretty good job here in Boston, which is probably why they were able to create that quarantine zone. But then you find out that obviously, you know, the clickers, and we finally get our first beautiful view of what the clickers look like 20 years on, and holy cow, these things are nutty. And yeah, right away, you know, Joel lets us know that the clickers can hear, but they can't see. So you can shine a flashlight, you know, on their face, and they're not going to hear you. But yeah, if you're making, you know, they're basically the T-Rexes from Jurassic Park. You just got to be very, very quiet. But just crazy special effects, because yeah, the head of all these clickers just looks like a blown up piece of fungus, and you look at the arms and the appendages, and they just have those little you know, you'll see like little like mushrooms growing out of them, and it's really impressed by the makeup stuff. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, this did a very good job of diverting a little bit, but still following the game as I played. And they definitely added the scare factor of the clickers, and they get far worse. That's the thing. It's like we're just at the tipping point of where we're going to see how bad this can get. They did add in the new layer of how they are connected in a network.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was really cool.
And the tendrils are really a bigger thing now than just the spores. In the game, you're constantly wearing like gas masks to protect yourself from spores. In this instance, it's which I don't know if they'll play more into that, but it looks like the tendrils going into you are a bigger deal. So, which we had that horrific scene with Tess, and
right before she meets her Waterloo.
Unfortunate makeout scene.
Ooh, yeah, no means no. No means no, clicker.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
gnarly.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a great setup. And Todd, you tipped me off. And listeners, if you've not caught this, as you watch the show, there is obviously there's little 5-minute making of vignettes, which are great to watch. But there's also, on the next episode, so the one that we're seeing tonight, which by the time you listen to this, hopefully you may have already seen it. Nick Offerman joins the cast, so I'm excited about that. He's terrific. Ron Swanson himself.
Yeah, I love the behind the scenes though. Game of Thrones did it so well that kind of layers on extra information you might not have got, which is
Right.
great. And they're doing that again, so it's one of my favorite things in the world. Versus like when the series is over and they do that, because I feel like it's nice to have that right after that. Really, this is what we did in this episode, so it kind of gives you more context and gets me more excited about what's going to come next. But yeah.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And that, Carly, actually reminds me of like when we talked about so one of our Patreon projects coming up is you're going to talk about this is, you launched week 1 of Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
And what I love about Buck Rogers, which I didn't realize they did it, they basically give you like the kind of the recap of what's gonna happen in the episode before it.
I call it the pre-preview, which I
weird,
love that.
like, did this already happen? No, this is just telling us what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I know. And I hadn't, it was funny when I started watching it when we did the first segment, I was like, what is this?
I thought I missed something. I'm like, was it a two-parter?
Yeah, exactly. I thought I'm streaming. How do they do this? So real quick, one last thing, because we shared that. I'm gonna toss one in there. We started watching and it's on Peacock, but it's called Poker Face with
I was gonna watch that too.
Call her Natasha Leggero, but it's Natasha Leone. And it's great. She's just she's this kind of ne'er-do-well, kind of down on her luck woman who is a human lie detector, and she becomes an amateur sleuth. We watched 2 episodes. I think there's 4 out now. It's new every Thursday on Peacock. It's Peacock Original, if I'm not mistaken. And she is just, I've always enjoyed her, going all the way back to the slums of Beverly Hills in like the late 90s. And then of course she was in the American Pie films, or some of them, and then Orange is the New Black. And she's got that great gritty, like, like, cigarette.
She started smoking at the age of 12.
Yeah, exactly. But she's had a really hard life. She has her ups and downs with addiction and being in and out of rehab. So it's nice to see her having a little bit of a career renaissance where she's hopefully in a better place. But I think she's great, and the show is fun. Like I said, we watched.
Is it okay? I was wondering, like, is it more like a Columbo or something, where it's kind of like a jokey solved crime of the week?
Yeah, it's jokey, but in typical parlance, it's kind of there are some a little harder edge moments, and it's a little bit more with the language and stuff. So yeah, she's not quite so like, you still love Columbo because the end he was a great guy. She's not super great, but she's got kind of that I want to do the right thing kind of vibe. So yeah, so I would
urging a hero.
Yeah, I would recommend it. All right, so, and I said that was quick and I meant it. So now it's on you.
Yeah, so I'm going to add a bonus. Just let everybody know, an update on the Paul T. Goldman saga.
Oh, yes.
It is wrapped up. 6 episodes, so it's a pretty good watch. This show is like a roller coaster. Finished it. It builds you up in thinking one thing, and then something else happens. And it's a really good, and it's by the folks who did Borat, which made me think, well, is this going to be like we're going to find this is all fake and this is not really about a real person? Nope. So I don't want to give too much away, but I would say it's very satisfying. It deals with reality and the impact of people very well. This is Seth Rogen executive produced this as well, and they do some really good blending of like as this was happening and then after it happened and recapping it. It's not mean-spirited, but it does cover some things in a way that kind of reveal about all of us thinking we're the hero. In some instances,
I learned something today.
Yeah, exactly. Ultimately, like, you know what? When you only see your perspective, sometimes, you're a jerk. So it made me reflect on like, yeah, maybe I should look outside myself and say, how was my impact on people of the world? Maybe I'm not the hero I always want to be, because I always say, be the hero, not the villain. Sometimes the villain doesn't always think he's the villain. Sometimes he does.
And let's not forget that no matter how good of a guy you are, you're always the villain in somebody's story. And I could tell you right off the top of the head.
So you may think it wasn't a big deal. And
I can tell you right at the top of the head whose villain I am, but I do the best I can.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. The only perfect person is Arthur Fonzarelli.
I think you meant Po Buddy's Nerfect in Australia.
Exactly. Yeah. Arthur Fonzarelli. If we could all be the Fonz, that's really
you're right.
Be like, hey. Oh well.
Hey.
So yeah, check out Paul T. Goldman. It was really well done. I think Peacock's really raising its bar. Like you said, Poker Face. This. I think, and they did say that they are doing well.
Yeah.
So that's good. So
That's good.
good
It
job,
means you can
Peacock.
expect more. So that's good.
Yeah.
Way to go, Peacock. All right, what's this other thing you got here?
So Lockwood and Co. is a new series on Netflix. It's British. It is Joe Cornish is behind the show. It is based on a series of books, and Joe Cornish did Attack the Block. He did other things. Attack the Block is a great movie, Charlie. You should watch. It is
I've seen it.
essentially.
I think
Oh,
I
you've
saw
seen
it.
it? Okay.
Yeah, it's what's
Yep.
his face. It's
Yep.
Finn from
Fin's
Star Wars.
debut. Yeah,
Yeah.
great movie about alien invasion in kind of the hood in London. Very good. This is by. It's basically he's executive producing the series based on the books, and this is kind of a cool premise. It's a younger set. These are like the main characters of the show are all under 20, and it revolves around the fact that there has been a event that happened that essentially had the supernatural. Everyone is aware of it, and it is a problem that has to be managed by these special organizations. So one of them is called LockWood and Company. And you find out the reason why youths are selected is because they're more open to supernatural phenomenon. The older you get, you lose that connection.
Mhm.
So they basically recruit these children with sensitivities and uh, essential capabilities to manage these threats, and they're managed by an organization. They're sent out like on jobs, and everyone is aware of this. So this is like if the Ghostbusters went on to become like legit and had
Right.
agencies across the world, which I
So
thought was a great concept.
these kids have certain sensitivities, but then they age out, so it's like Menudo, like what we
So
were talking
far,
about earlier.
yeah, we haven't gotten to that part yet, but I
Yeah.
assume that's probably what it is. You only have so many years of service you can have, and maybe you go onto the organization as like an executive, but not an operative. And
Nice.
it's neat. They do some pretty good. So right now we're in kind of like we're learning about the main characters. Basically, the one I don't know if you call her main character because there's really three main characters, so they're all kind of equal. But she's been the main person we focus through. Her name is Lucy, and she basically was in an organization, was rising up in the ranks, and had a terrible tragedy, and she essentially was blamed for it. So disgrace, she's looking to make something of herself, and that's kind of what leads her to join the Lockwood and Company team. And it's highly entertaining. Watch the first two episodes. It just came out on Friday, so a week ago when you're listening to this. I like it. I think it's managed very well from a good sensibility. It's not like romance and the teen stuff. Really, it's really about just young people stepping up to the challenge, and the special effects are pretty good too. So, and I think there's going to be an ongoing mystery through it. I'm not sure if this is going to be a one and done or where it is. It's Netflix, it could be, but I like it. So
They
check out
they
Lockwood and
they
Co.
do they do tend to have that reputation of the one and done. Oh my goodness! Alrighty, Root. Well, that's it for the Geek Easy. Todd, time to stiff them on the tab yet again because my grilled cheese was not grilled, and my drink was very watered down. So you know what? Forget them. But I'm going to get out that Air Quantus app. It's time to get to the land down under. The mutants are waiting for us in the Thunderdome with a topic or a game. So let's go.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants have been gathered for a topic in our game to be entertained. And this week we're doing a topic, and this one was trying to figure out the best way to place this in a good discussion. But as we are watching The Last of Us, we know it is based on a limited set of source material. And when you have any property you try to adapt and expand and find success, you want that success to last as long as possible, unless you're like, nope, we're two and done, and that's it. Very rarely do you get that. The last time I think I saw that was Watchmen on HBO. They said we're doing one season, and that's all they did, even though it was highly
Wow.
successful. So with that, it makes me think about what if we've got any good examples of or bad examples of where the source material was stretched or a show was stretched beyond its boundaries to keep the quality up and keep people entertained and not let the the dollars over
Yes, not let
take the actual the
right.
it's the best way to put it. It's kind of like your integrity, right?
Right.
Integrity of an idea versus the bank.
Integrity. I think and I think we've come up with three good examples here, and I won't name them, but I'll say. So we have one that was a movie that became a show. We have a book that became a show that outlasted the material, but then bounced back into a prequel that is now very well loved. And you have a third one that's a book series that the adaptation did, and maybe I'm mistaken, didn't really adapt a book or the books in such a fashion, just simply became a concept that has been evergreen, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe they did adapt the books.
Okay.
Although I'm not sure if every James Bond movie, and it's getting back to this whole thing, I'm not sure if every
Right.
James Bond movie has always been based on a book. If that
Right,
makes sense.
exactly. So,
Like cherry picking.
and you don't have to necessarily. I mean, I had no awareness until I found a stack of Ian Fleming books in my grandparents' basement because my grandfather loved those books. My dad read those books. I had no idea it was based on a book. I just know, oh, it's James Bond, and blah blah blah, and then from
Mhm.
the '60s, and then it was another dude, and this and that. But let's start from the start. So we'll start with the first one I mentioned, which was a movie that became a beloved television series, and we're talking about MASH, which was Robert Altman's 1970 film about the Korean War. Which it was a great little bookend because it had to do with our main characters arriving. You have Dr. Hawkeye Pierce, which is Donald Glover,
Donald Glover.
Donald Sutherland.
Wow, he looks good for his age.
I know, isn't it amazing? Then you also had Tom Skerritt, who is a character who didn't make it into the later television show,
Elliot Gould.
and Elliot Gould was Trapper John, and then you had Sally Kellerman was Hot Lips Houlihan, and I think you had Robert Duvall was Frank, the uber religious one, and it was just they were just a bunch of wacky surgeons. And MASH is of course Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, so it was about frontline surgeons in Korea. And Elias said it was a film that it began with him coming in, and
I
it
think it was
left with him
Oscar nominated as well.
Yeah, I mean it was spectacular. I love
Classic
that movie.
song.
Yep.
Yeah.
Suicide is Painless, which then became the theme of the television show without the lyrics. Because I know you wouldn't be singing about suicide every to kick off a sitcom every week. But yeah, that was on as I said, it came out in 1970, and then I think the show circled back to be on in 1972, so just a couple of years later, launched with Alan Alda in the lead role as as Hawkeye Pierce, and then we had his sideman was I'm sorry, and then we had Gary Burkhart as Radar O'Reilly, who was the camp secretary, as it were, who was in both the film and then later in the television series. And again, I'm riffing all this off of memory. We had in the show. Trapper John was it? Refresh me about the whole, because there was the one dude who was there, and then the other dude took over.
Yeah, Trapper John, played by Larry. What's his name? I can't remember. Larry something or other. Well, let's put it that way.
Yes, Larry.
Yes. Oh, no, sorry, Wayne Rogers.
Wayne Rogers. There you go.
Yeah, and it's funny because they did take. And I was just looking at this. Basically, MASH is based on a novel about 3 Army doctors by Richard
Okay,
Hooker.
there you go. So it is
a
an
novel
adaptation
that became a movie that became a TV series. So once again, a triple,
with several spinoffs, including After MASH, and wasn't Trapper John MD also a sitcom?
It was weird because it was actually not. It wasn't a sitcom. It was actually a.
Was it drama?
Medical drama.
Like a medical? Oh! You see, I don't know that I've ever. I don't know that I've ever seen it.
His name. Yeah, and then we did get After MASH as well.
Right.
Was a sequel to that where it was post Korean War.
Right.
And they did that series. And I don't know how much of the producers that were involved in the TV show actually were involved in the movie, to be honest. So a lot of it became like, here's the situation where we were going to take this. And this wasn't very common back in the day, where you got a movie turned into a TV series. Just didn't happen a lot. Maybe Westerns, maybe.
And they weren't really interconnected. They took the concept and the characters, but it was not a continuation, because they weren't going to take these big movie stars and stick them in a TV show, which is super common these days. But back in those days, not at all. Those were two very different career tracks, is the way people looked at it. Like, I'm a movie star. I'm not going to trouble myself with being on a weekly series, which is a lot of work. Having to make up and be there 5 days a week or whatever it is, and they're just really not into that. And these 12-hour days.
Like you said, Gary Burghoff is the only actual transplant from the movie into the TV series, and then we got a lot of new characters, and they continued to refresh it because you had Frank. What's Frank's last name?
Oh God, I'm drawing a blank. Major,
So
it was Major such and such. Yeah,
yeah,
he was
Major
the foil.
Burns,
Yeah,
Major Burns. Yep, he
Major
was.
Burns. There you
Yep,
go.
and and Houlihan were a hot thing, and then
He was not
left.
Larry Burns though, which I think
No,
was because it was Mr. Burns' son
he
from
left,
Simpsons,
and
right?
then essentially was replaced by
Oh,
David
David
Ogden
Ogden. Yeah,
Stiers
David Ogden
in a
Steers. Yeah,
totally
exactly.
different take on the annoyance.
You're right.
You got essentially Trapper left, and you got BJ Honeycutt,
Honeycutt. Yep.
new
Yeah.
character brought in. You got the
Eh,
original Colonel,
yeah. Harry
played
Morgan
by,
came in as the
yep,
new Colonel.
replacing
Yeah.
McLean Stevens, who died on the
The
plane,
character
or
died. Yeah.
yeah,
He was
in the,
going home and his plane crashed. Yeah.
yeah, and then we got Jamie Farr as Corporal Klinger. So they did enough things that continued to, freshen up the show, add in storylines, and because it was like a medical drama and it was comedic, they could not so worry about the headlines of the Korean War. They could just basically make it a medical comedy drama,
Right.
which I don't know if there were many medical comedy dramas at the time, but maybe that's why this was a revelation for a lot of people. Were
Right.
managing the dramedy. I guess that's the best way. This was a
Right.
dramedy, and they
Right.
didn't happen very often at the time.
And it was such a smashing success that, again, the Korean War, which is like 3 or 4 years, the show was on for 11 years. And very famously, the final episode, which was goodbye, hello, something or other, it was like 3 words that had to say goodbye, was the most single watched program for decades to follow. And is, I'm sure, still in the
Until
top 3 to
2010.
5. Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so that's only 13 years ago. So I would imagine whatever nudged it out, it's still number 2 or number 3.
Probably Super Bowl. I mean,
Yeah.
they talked about it's still the most watched finale of any television series and the most watched
Right.
episode of a scripted series today. So
Because it was
but
one of those for our generation. Name me your parents or a parent or a grandparent that didn't watch this show. My grandparents
there was
watched
3
it.
channels,
My
right? There's 3
yeah,
channels,
right.
and you
And if
watched
this was
MASH or you watched nothing else.
right, exactly. It was so funny. You know what's so funny is we were talking about. Remember, I found that that extremely short-lived sitcom with Gina Davis that I showed you guys the trailer. Sarah, I actually found an episode of it on YouTube and watched it, and then I did a little reading behind it. So that was on in the first half of 1985, but it aired opposite of Dynasty, so it had
Good
no
luck with that.
chance.
Yeah.
Had no chance. Yeah, 13 episodes dead. But notable about that show, Bronson Pinchot, who later went on to be Balky in Perfect Strangers, first gay character on an American television series.
Even before Billy Crystal and Soap?
Potentially openly gay character. Or did they say something about him being white? Billy Crystal's white. Now I'm confused.
I don't know. It's decent. We're not talking about Sarah, but look up Sarah if you want.
Yes, please do. You can find one episode on
yeah.
YouTube. Enjoy yourself.
So MASH would be like the rare one where it continued to grow and maintained its success through many changes, cast, everything from a book to a movie. And then they try to expand it even more with the After MASH series, where it was the pastor, Corporal Klinger,
oh yeah,
Radar, right,
and then and Klinger's wife, who was actually Keiko from Star Trek, Chief O'Brien's wife, same actress, Rosalind Chow.
Yeah. So, and that I don't know how long that lasted, but I mean, it probably didn't go very far because I mean, no one remember. It went from 83 to 85. So, Trapper John was another one, 78 to 86. Charlie, that was longer.
Yeah, Trapper John, and like you said, they spun it forward to modern time, so they jumped it forward 20 years and had a different actor playing Trapper John. Wasn't that the way that worked? Because it wasn't.
Then they tried to do a spin-off with Walter Radar O'Reilly called Walter with star in between each letter. That lasted 1 year.
Oh wow!
He joins the St. Louis Police Force.
Oh, what? Yes. So bizarre. Yeah, because at one point Radar left the show because when his mom got sick and they gave him a hardship discharge, so he left the series. Yeah.
So there you go.
Interesting. All right.
So that would be a good example of something I would say successfully going beyond the source material and really growing and being highly successful. And no one said it jumped the shark. So I think that's a good way to do it. So, and we're also, ultimately then, Charlie, and thank you for bringing this in the way, that you raised it up. Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, a phenomenon, based on a series of books by George Martin that was not finished at the time that they made the deal to make the show. The showrunners, they essentially got about 5 seasons of source material. And then George R. Martin, Mr. Railroad, basically shared with the showrunners, Benioff and Weiss, essentially an outline of what he had planned to finish the series of books. Give you some context to this. You know how many books George Martin has put out in the series since the show began?
None.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah,
Bingo.
he's like,
Yeah.
shit, I like these checks. I don't want to work. And
Exactly.
I'm old.
And there's jokes about George keep writing because we were like, but they essentially, the showrunners were eventually saying, we aren't going to be doing this show for the rest of our life. It is
Mhm.
going to have to end. We have other things we want to do. So essentially, they went from being primarily based on source material with the author being highly involved to
Right.
essentially the showrunners took the outline and made it up as they went along to finish the
Ki
series.
Kind of reminds you of, do you remember in the various like Simpsons clip shows, they had that one with the song at the end that they'll never stop the Simpsons, and they go, how about Marge becomes a robot? And how about, did someone say surprise wedding? I mean, that is kind of what the last, was
They
it year
adopt
or
they
year
get a new
or
child
two?
like Oliver
Yeah.
from the Brady
Yeah,
Bunch.
exactly. So the last kind of year or two of Game of Thrones just turned into whatever. It's just, maybe this person will do this thing. Maybe then the dragon will blow up and then there'll be a romance. That's incest or whatever, which I'm sorry, that was pretty part and parcel of the show. So, but yeah, I mean, and again, there are people out there that certainly hated it way more than I did. And I was a quasi casual fan because I'm not a big fantasy guy like so many people are, and much respect to that. But yeah, there are some people, and I don't know if it was the last season or the last two seasons, that people were just, they were with their knives and pitchforks about how much they just absolutely hated the direction that these guys went in. But yeah, making it up as you go along, that works great for Indiana Jones when he's trying to, get the lost Ark of the Covenant back. But for doing this multi-million-dollar epic TV show that is beloved by audiences around the world, that dog doesn't hunt. Essentially,
Yeah, improv is hard to do with huge
right.
budgets. And I totally get where people feel torn. I do. I think the showrunners did the best they could with what they had to do. I don't think HBO would probably have loved this to go on forever, but the reality was that the showrunners got no feeling that George R. R. Martin would be able to complete more books to really satisfy what the audience wanted. They felt like there was a shift change from dedicated, really replicating the big story beats, the dialogue from it, to then it felt like they had to get to the finish. It was plot driven. There wasn't memorable dialogue. There weren't the standout episodes. There were some that were standout, but there weren't like the Red Wedding, things like that. That were like, oh my God. And
wait till you get to the Red Wedding. Somebody who's watching it behind
and I
the
think
eight
it
ball,
also made the fans of the books mad because that was the first time where they didn't know what was coming. Right. So it's like, we're being surprised. Oh, we don't like that. So some people felt like they were, we liked it before they hit big, Charlie. That people always say, I liked the Beatles before, they became hit big.
No, you didn't. Yeah, you weren't listening to the Beatles in Hamburg in 1960. So yeah, no, you didn't. You saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show. So shut up.
Yeah, you don't get bonus points for liking something before everybody else does. It just
I liked before it was cool. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's the culture of gatekeeping. It's like somebody's you got to put down somebody else's accomplishment by saying, "Well, get back to me when you've been doing it for 35 years." But, give me a break.
And I think a lot of people felt unsatisfied because there were some parts of the books that were not in the show proper. I think it was like the Stone Queen, where it was essentially the mother who was killed. She's actually not dead. She gets brought back from the death. I think she's called the Stone
with stones.
Queen. Yeah,
kind of that Ricky therapy. Put stones.
Yeah.
On.
So this essentially the show, as we know, Game of Thrones, did really well, and I think people wanted more, but people felt burned. And now I believe they pitched like 5 or 6 different spin-offs, potentially one in the far future with Jon Snow, carrying forward basically the storyline we know, and then there was other ones from the past. And Charlie, as we know, we got House of Dragons. A lot of people didn't know what to think, right? People were like, holy crap, I don't want Game of Thrones anymore. It's dead. I don't want to do this anymore.
They burned me up. Yeah, it's kind of fooled me twice. And so we got this show in the early part of 2022, or was it later? No, it was later in 2022. So we got it in the late summer, ran throughout the fall.
Yeah.
And it was a phenomenon. 10 episodes. I really embrace the 10 episode per season format of things because we've all just got so much crap to watch. Having 26 episodes of something, it seems to be very outmoded because you get half or a third of it that's filler. That's just like, oh, we got to get something out. So here's a script where, Picard goes to the dentist or something on TNG. Nobody wants to see it. But this was great. Very tight, liberal time jumps in the series so that, you start with younger characters at a certain age and you jump forward to seeing them, at 10 years later, and then you jump forward to seeing them as adults with children, and then the children get involved. And then, liberally, sprinkling in the special effects and the mythological fantasy aspects of it, but not making it so dependent on here's a dragon. It's the House of the Dragons, and the dragon is a character in every episode. No, it's still about all the things that people really loved about House of Dragon, or the Game of Thrones in the first place, was the political intrigue and the backstabbing, and you don't know what's going to happen next. And I can't believe this guy did that. And this character now he got stabbed in the face, and we thought he was going to be somebody. You know what I mean? So, the famous ending with our beloved Mandalorian Pedro Pascal, where at the last moment, the mountain pops up and punches him in the face and knocks all his teeth out, and then he squishes his skull. Just like, I sure as hell didn't see that coming. A lot of the gotcha moments that you just didn't see coming. And then, House of Dragons really brought that back, and in the storytelling format that I felt was really tight and on point. And again, didn't come from one of the books, just came from the pen of. Now, who was the principal behind that show? Was it the same guys?
No, I'd have to look at House of the Dragon. I can tell you it is.
No, House of Dragons, not House of the Dragon.
House
that was
of
Bruce
the
Lee.
Dragon. Yep.
I think it stuck.
Yep.
They could have stuck Bruce Lee in there.
Ryan J.
The
Condal. So he is new, because not Benioff and Weiss. And the good thing about this, it's based on a book, Fire and Blood. It's a standalone book telling kind of this story.
Okay.
So it is based on source material again, but it's not like it's condensed. It's set. Now, once again, will they try to make the show last 85 seasons and then once again run out of source material? George Martin, I don't know if he's I know he's involved because he gets paid to do this. He's an executive producer. It just may be in name. I don't know if he blesses anything like casting or anything like that. But once again, if this wants to continue and HBO wants this to be the next big thing, they could go into the same problem of running out of source material, and it could. But once again, this all happened in the past, so it's all made up anyways for George.
Right.
No one can say it didn't happen now. So I don't know.
That's not my hot D.
Yeah. And so once again, I'm not familiar with the book. I don't know if there's things taken directly out of it. I'm assuming it's based on a lot of it. I'm not sure if there's great dialogue from it. And if they run out of that, it's going to just
like
turn
key
into
moments and key
trash heap.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, only time will tell.
Like an arc of redemption for Game of Thrones in a way, right?
Right, exactly. So, and then finally, we started talking a little bit about this as we were slowly kind of revealing, is James Bond. And again, this was from a series of novels from, I'm going to say, the 1950s, maybe very early 1960s, because we got the first James Bond film in 1962. That was Dr. No, with Sean Connery. James Connery. Who's James Connery in the titular role as James Bond? It was Ian Fleming who wrote these novels. And again, it was one of those, like, I had, by the time you and I were aware of movies growing up, James Bond was Roger Moore, and then it kind of morphed into Timothy Dalton as you got into the middle to late 80s, the later 80s, because he was James Bond 3 or 4 times. But it's an evergreen concept of a gentleman spy who works for the British government. And it is, as I said, it's a franchise that's now 61 years old. And they just, much like with Doctor Who, though, without any explanation, they just keep reinventing it. Like, here's another James Bond. But it's in some way, somehow the same character, because I remember very clearly in one of those Timothy Dalton movies, they made reference to the fact that James Bond was married in the past very briefly, but his wife died. But that happened in one of the Sean Connery movies in the 60s. So it's very, very, it's very kind of quasi evergreen with the time frame,
And I looked it up, Charlie. So Ian Fleming, all of his James Bond novels became movies. So all of those have been adapted, and actually some of them are short stories, like Octopussy and the Living Daylights were short stories
Okay, and
written in
Living Daylights was
1966.
one of the later films that came out in the 80s.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting there. And then after Ian Fleming died, it does not look like any of those were actually. Oh, well, License to Kill was, but other than that, I didn't see any based on the title that were actually adapted into movies.
Oh, gotcha.
And they were
So he
written
has.
by Kingsley Amis as Robert Markham.
Oh, got. Okay, great. So not written by him. Oh, so the character.
And they were
went on.
published in 1968. So.
Oh, okay. So when the films were already being made. And when did Ian Fleming die?
It would have been in the 60s.
Okay, so before what's his butt writing as such
and then they
such took
continued
over?
to they did make more. So 96 they made more books.
Okay.
Tomorrow Never Dies was one of them, which did get adapted. Die Another
Okay.
Day got adapted. The World Is Not
Interesting.
Enough got adapted.
But the more recent string of films with Johnny Handsome Pants, who's the guy who just wrapped up his
Daniel
run?
Craig. So
Daniel
Casino
Craig.
Royale was one of those.
Right.
But the rest, none of those are part of those. So I
Gotcha.
mentioned those are just all original stories or maybe taken from something else.
Gotcha. But again, more overall, James Bond as concept seems pretty timeless and doesn't necessarily seem to be tied back to a movie series, because even again, you just told me all this information. I thought, well, I thought there was a handful of books and it was a character and they just grabbed it and ran with it. But again, it's not like, these are a huge novel series that a ton of people are aware of, because I didn't have any. I've never read one of these books. I never felt like I had to really enjoy the films. And again, James Bond movies have been beloved by people the world over for the last 60 years and will continue to be, because they just continue to reinvent. And the canon of it is kind of unimportant, because you might get a touch here, you might get a touch there, but it just doesn't really matter.
It didn't matter before. I would say the Daniel, maybe Timothy Dalton, his movies, they mattered.
Right. Exactly. But it's just, Pierce Brosnan did it in the late 90s and the early aughts. The GoldenEye, the famous one that gave us that video game that apparently everybody loves. James, it's one of those that just need never suffer, because it's a dude who's a special agent. He's a gentleman. He's a ladies' man. He's got all these crazy gadgets, and you can just go with that until the cows come home. And it will still be popular. It's kind of like
reinvented, like Doctor Who, with another actor playing him, a different spin, a different take.
Well, like Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live's been on the air it's pushing 50 years. Will it? And Kenan Thompson has been on for 25 of those. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think it's been canon for about 20 years though.
Yeah, you don't think so? Yeah, they're off book.
Where's Gumby? We haven't seen Gumby in all these years.
Yeah, you're right. It's all fan fiction at this point.
Or Goat Boy. But I was gonna say, fun fact: the first appearance of James Bond on the screen of any size was in television, 1954. CBS paid Ian Fleming $1,000. About $10,000 today to adapt his novel Casino Royale into a 1-hour television adventure. And guess what? The first James Bond was not portrayed by a Brit. It was actually a American actor, Barry Nelson. So this just tells us right here,
Barry Nelson, Ozzie Nelson's brother.
Exactly. So James Bond can be a ugly American.
I gotcha. Was he an ugly American? Is there a picture?
No, a handsome man.
Yes. Handsome, ugly American. Oh my goodness. Well, that's why this is wild. And I tell you, this has been a fun segment, but we 100% came up with this on the fly because Missy gave us some super cool topics, as is her privilege as a Patreon supporter. We didn't know what to do with them. So we're gonna go back to plan. We're gonna figure something else out, and we're gonna
we get some more questions that are in our wheelhouse that we can actually speak to intelligently.
We'll get our just desserts, and that is a privilege of being a member of our Patreon. And again, we want to thank both Missy and the Nias family, Sean and his rhythm section of Stella and Henry, for being our top tier Patreon supporters. We couldn't do it without you. But Todd, that's the show. Unless I'm very much mistaken. Thank you everybody for joining us. I have been Charlie Carden. You can find me out there on the internets at the C3 at just about all the socials. I'm kind of dabbling on Instagram, but I'm under my pseudonym, so don't necessarily look for me there, but maybe I'll be looking for you. My wife April and I do run the USS Grand Petoskey. That is the West Michigan chapter of the International Star Trek Fan Club. You can find us at a website at that address and across most socials. If you're a Trekker, if you live in Michigan, drop us a line. We'd love to have you on board. Todd, where do people find you out there?
Find me at Deoxtra. Just having a good time talking about all things video games, sports, and things in the world of nerd. And when you're done checking me there, check out at SecretFriendsU on Twitter to find all of what we're up to in the world of nerd, and then also SecretFriendsUnite.com for the place to find everything we do in one place, and then Patreon / SecretFriendsUnite for our patrons. You can see what we've got out there for content and more news to come as well in that realm.
Yes, indeed. Ever evolving. Friends, one more time, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
I drink and I know things.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.